Hello, today I want to talk about how you can earn more money and have a more fulfilling life by simply leaving some money on the table. So I'm going to start with a little bit personal story. At one time in my life, when I was eager to make as much money as possible, I was doing several jobs at the same time. I was an Airbnb host, I was a dance teacher, I was an Uber driver, and in addition to that, I used to be kind of a day trader in the stock market. And I kept this pace for about 4 years. And yes, I made some decent money while I was doing this, but guess what? I suffered from a burnout. I got to the point where I couldn't work anymore, and what I ended up doing is that I stopped doing any work at all, and I took a 1-year sabbatical to reassess my goals and to regain some of the energy that I was so depleted from. So eventually I went back into the working market, and I decided to be more strategic about how I would spend my energy and my creativity. And I decided to work up to 60 or maximum 70% of my capacity, but work smarter and try to allocate my time to the places where I could get the bigger return for my creativity, for my time, for my effort. And guess what? A few years later, I was just working a lot less, like almost 50% of the work that I was doing before, and I was earning almost twice as much money. So this is a lesson that all of us could use. We can reassess where we are in life, where we can concentrate our efforts, and then see what happens. This life is a marathon, it's not a sprint. So if you take life as a sprint, you are going to burn out, like I did burn out. But if you take life as a marathon, yes, you will not optimize 100% of the time, but you will be able to stay in the race for a lot longer. There is a historic example that I also want to share with you. I'm sure you have heard of John D. Rockefeller, who was at one time the richest man in the United States and maybe the richest man globally, okay? So Rockefeller, he managed to live until age 97 when he was older in his age. And this is a time when people were dying at age 50, maybe age 60. So he was on his 90s, and someone asked him, Mr. Rockefeller, what is the secret to your longevity? And he said, well, my doctor told me to stop eating when I'm still a little bit hungry. In other words, to leave a little bit on the table. And unfortunately, this is not an advice that Mr. Rockefeller followed through his business career as well. He was known as the head of this huge monopoly called Standard Oil Trust, okay? And what it is that they took over production and distribution of oil in the United States and transportation, and he squeezed everybody else so much that he had no competition and that he had created this huge monopoly. Well, guess what? The government pushed back. He was sued on antitrust laws, and he lost his monopoly. He was forced to sell, to diversify, to sell pieces of his monopoly. Well, you know what? If Mr. Rockefeller would have left a little bit of money on the table, it would have left enough for his competitors to have something to live on, maybe he would have stayed as the richest man in the world at that time, and maybe his legacy would have been much kinder as it is right now. Right now, he's known as this genius businessman who was also a pariah. But maybe if he didn't squeeze everybody else so hard and left some money on the table, we will have a better image of Mr. Rockefeller's genius in business. I have another personal story to share. At one time when I was in my 20s, I was a lot into bodybuilding, powerlifting. I used to compete in powerlifting competitions, and I was very devoted to this sport, right? And I pushed myself so hard, over 100% of my physical capacity that, to be honest, I destroy my shoulders, my elbows, my back, my knees, my hip. In fact, that was when I was in my 20s. I'm now 57 years old, and some of the injuries have never healed. Like, I will never be able to lift heavy weights ever again because my shoulders are so destroyed. And what I'm thinking is, if I haven't pushed myself so hard to always be pushing maximum capacity of my body, maybe I will still be in good shape. Maybe my joints wouldn't be destroyed. Maybe I will still be lifting heavy weights, not 100% of my capacity, but maybe 60-70%, and I will be in much better shape. But I didn't leave anything on the table. I should have left a little bit of energy there left over, and I will be better off. And guess what? This is not just in the sports. This is not in my working life. These principles also apply for corporations, for governments, for all kinds of situations. We recently had elections in the United States, and if you are aware, the Republicans won, Donald Trump won, and the Democrats lost, okay? And one of my theories is that the Democrats had too much on their plates. They wanted to fight for too many issues, and many of those issues, they were not even relevant to mainstream America.
How dare we speak Merry Christmas? How dare we?
But, they just wanted to push for this and that and the other thing. For example, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And most Americans believe on the system of meritocracy. So to push this, that someone gets special treatment because they are of a minority, let's say Latino like I am, or maybe a woman because they are gay or whatever, that they get preferential treatment because of that, there is a level of, in the main psychic of people, that there is a level of unfairness. There is also the issue of open borders, okay? So yes, Democrats want to accept as many immigrants as possible, and it's not that the United States is anti-immigrant. The United States is anti-illegal immigrants, which is a big difference. So when you hear in the news that this illegal immigrant raped a person, and this other illegal immigrant stole something, and this other illegal immigrant killed somebody else, this is an issue that is going to play against you, okay? So, I don't know, they should have maybe tried to ask immigrants to obey the law. The first activity that you will be doing in your host country will be to break the law. That's not a good way to start your relationship in a new country.
Before police say the nursing student was murdered while out for a run on the University of Georgia campus. The suspect identified as an illegal immigrant from Venezuela. And that is sparking a new wave of outrage over sanctuary city policies in place across the country.
And police say his name is Sebastian Zapeta, and that he is the man who lit a woman on fire while on the subway in Coney Island last weekend. The Guatemala native, they say, entered the country in 2018 illegally and was deported days later and then returned during an unknown time. It was Sunday morning when Zapeta lit a woman's clothes on fire while on the same subway car and then watched her burn alive from a bench on the platform at the Stillwell Avenue station. Last night,
the other thing or the issue is allowing biological men in women's sports. This affects a very small segment of the population, but the idea of fairness or unfairness is always there. Of course, it's unfair to allow a man in a woman's sport. And I don't know why the Democrat Party decided to die on this hill.
The fifth-year Penn senior swam her way to victory on Thursday in the women's 500-yard freestyle event, touching the wall in 4 minutes and 33 seconds. But her triumph was met with boos from inside the Macaulay Aquatic Center, where the national championship is being held, and outside, a group protesting Thomas competing on the women's team, facing off with her supporters. Thomas spent 3 seasons on the Ivy League's men's team before undergoing hormone therapy.
Other issues are student debt forgiveness, okay? there is an element of unfairness to the person who worked hard, who was very careful in order not to get in debt, or who paid their debt, versus somebody else whose debt was just forgiven, okay?
The Biden administration announced Friday about 55,000 student loan borrowers will have their debts forgiven, totaling nearly $4.3 billion in relief, marking the latest wave of student loan forgiveness.
There were so many issues that the Democrat Party wanted to cover and to fight for that they just lost focus. Had they just decided to focus on one or two or maybe three issues, like for example, reproductive rights, okay, this is an issue where the Democratic Party had the upper hand, where most of the public was with them. But not when you have 20 other issues to fight for, then you lose focus and people lose faith on your party. So yeah, yes, in politics as well, yes, leave some money on the table. In business, there are some businesses like, for example, Apple and maybe Ticketmasters and Live Nation that they feel, from my outsider's point of view, that they are squeezing the clients as much as possible for every possible cent, okay? And there is a pushback. Some people say, oh no, like if I buy my phone, I would like to do things with my phones and not be restricted by Apple on the things that I am allowed to do or not allowed to do. And of course, Ticketmaster, with all these additional fees that they put on top of buying a ticket, and it's just clients get saturated and sick of being taken advantage of. Now, let's talk about personal finance for a second. As I mentioned a minute ago, I was a day trader for a few years in my life, and I was doing that because I wanted to maximize every dollar that I had in my bank account, and I wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing out on any opportunities. So I was relentlessly reading the news, reading income statements, being aware of what's going on, and just fighting so hard for a few extra cents here and a few extra cents there. And at the end of the day, I didn't do that great. I could have done much better just by putting all my money in a broad-based index funds like the Standard & Poor's 500, which is performing quite well, and I would have had much higher returns, or I don't know about much higher, but let's say average to higher returns for practically zero effort. So this is the kind of things that we had to think of. Okay, I don't have to maximize every penny that I earn. I don't have to maximize every minute of my time that I have. Just by leaving some money on the table, some of my time, some of my effort, I can stay in the game much longer, and in the long run I will earn a lot more and have a better lifestyle. So we have to get used to the idea that good enough is good enough. By having this new mentality, we can avoid burning out. We can be able to sustain strongest relationship because we are not focused on maximizing every minute of our time. We can have a more sustainable lifestyle. So yes, I admit it, leaving some money on the table is not easy. Many of us ambitious people, we want to maximize everything, but we just have to make that mental shift that not going 100% could lead to greater success and satisfaction on the long run. So that's all. Thank you so much for listening, and until soon. Peace.